in 2016, I had left the carrier. As a matter of fact, what he just mentioned, the Care Improvement Plus, were the first chronic illness special needs plans, the first dual special needs plan. So I helped create and develop all of those through Medicare modernization. Doesn't matter if you know what that is, but you final expense, porch hopping, door knocking warriors will eventually know what a dual special needs plan is, and you'll love it. But that's another story. But in 2016, I was actually brought into a very large final expense organization. They were doing about $100 million of premium a year, so again, sizable, and they had never, or they were looking to engage Medicare. And we'll get into some of that here in a moment as well, because I really want this to be about you in this last, for my time that's here, and I'll be looking out for David with the big white sheet that has the descending clock on it, but more like the atomic clock for the way you've been pushing people off the stage. And so I went to a convention. My first day on the job was actually at Zika. I think that was Cabo San Lucas. And there were 200 of the top producing final expense agents in the country in that room. And I literally told the CEO and president at that time, he's actually with another bigger organization that I'm also partnered with. And I said to him, I'm going to go off script. Because I'm the Medicare man, and these guys had never done Medicare. As a matter of fact, most of them didn't even have their health license. So I'm going to stop for a moment and take another straw poll. How many of you that sell final expense don't have, and it's okay if you raise your hand, don't have your health license? So that's okay. Anybody else without a health license? Well, when I asked that room, 60% of them only had life. They did not have the accident and sickness or the health. So in theory, I'm now talking to a room of big producers, probably responsible for $40 million in life premium, simplified issue, final expense. And I basically needed them to listen to what I could tell them about the Medicare story. And I literally said that if you'll give me 3-minute elevator speech to let me talk to you about Medicare on the side, I'll do 30 minutes or 30 seconds of Michael Jackson. Because what you'd have to know is back when I had a lot of hair, and yes, you'll see in a moment, I had a lot of hair at one point, and I didn't think anybody would take me up on it. But then one of the little kids at the very last day, I thought, whew, I got away with it. I've talked to almost 200 of these producers, which by the way, that $100 million final expense shop now does a lot of things, but they're doing 50, 60,000 Medicare Advantage a year. So I have a great affinity, as again, you'll see in a moment, for agents that sell final expense who can compliantly layer on the Medicare equation and get it going. But at the end of that last night, I thought I'd gotten away with it. This little kid now, Gavin, said, Mr. Brandon didn't do Michael Jackson. And I said, get away, kid, get away. Kind of like Mean Joe Green, for those of you who remember the Coca-Cola commercial. Bottom line is, I ended up singing Man with the Mirror, and somewhere on YouTube there is a video. But if you look it up, I'll deny it and I'll kill you. But my name's Brandon Clay. I've been doing this for 26 years in the Medicare space specifically, been in sales for a little bit longer. So when Linda Greer was here earlier from Cigna, she and I have history that goes way back. But I've been in the industry a really long time, but my heart is for agents. Because I was an agent in 1996 for United Healthcare when all of this was just getting started. And honestly, there was a little bit of the thrown to the wolves proposition, even though it was for United Healthcare. So what I want to do, I am loaded for bear with slides. But it's something someone said earlier, and I can't remember now how it was contextualized, is prognosis without diagnosis is malpractice. I'll say that again. Prognosis without diagnosis is malpractice. So right now, between your Memorial Day weekend brain, I'm going to get some more food and get to hit balls. And it's been a long, power-packed day of so much information, I'm on overload. I want to cater this to what you need. So a couple of things. How many people are on, I'll call it, information overload? Anyone? Does anybody kind of want to express to me what they're feeling right now? Where to start? And it's like they always say at the beginning. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with what? One step. So here's the thing. The dizzying brain you're feeling is actually the balloon that's full of water being burst, and now all of a sudden you're overflowing with confirmation that, oh my gosh, there is something here. And we're not MLNing you and Amwaying you and new scanning you and shouting, saying recruit, recruit, recruit. This is now about service. What other feelings are you feeling?
Excitement.
Excitement.
Yeah.
Excited how? And about what?
Ready to go. Ready to start going.
Ready to start going. And there will be a ready, fire, aim composition here, because if you do paralysis by analysis, you'll never get the first step started, and you'll be sitting here 3 months later saying, how did everybody get ahead of me so fast? Because you didn't start running. It's the old gazelle lion analogy. What other emotion is anybody feeling? Yes, ma'am.
Optimistic.
Optimistic. And tell me why.
The training and the mentorship today has given me such hope and desire to push through and get as much experience and knowledge so I can serve others.
So optimism, hope, desire. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when hope comes, it's a tree of life. It's bursting with life. You get excited. And now all of a sudden, even though it's information overload, you're like, wait a minute, wait. I need 99% of what's being said, but today I can only digest so much. Is what I always tell agents. If I decide to go through the specific thing that I normally do for agents, particularly the final expense layering on the Medicare, some of that would be to bring the whole messaging together, and then there's a couple of inspirational / I'll say motivational things that I could do, because the brain can take a buffet of inspiration, but it can only take an a la carte of instruction. The human mind was designed for creating ideas, not holding them. And at some point, you're going to have to go back home and shut it down, reboot it, and then somehow get back connected to the optimism, the energy that's in this room. And that's not as much a shameless plug for 360 and the team here, but Matt Mungia texted me the other day and sent me a picture that he and I did 4 years ago, and I won't go into that story. And he says, it's been 4 years since I met you. And he has been one of the most impressive, nicest, best people I know in this industry. And I know, check me out on LinkedIn, I know a lot of people. Been doing this a really long time. I'm sort of the reluctant social media person, but I find myself in the haunts of influencers. But Matt, what he's done in 4 years, and no one can take credit for him. It's like what Ruben said about having met him and wondered if Lana could get milk or eggs or bread. But he changed his life and set him on course. But I could never take credit for Matt, but I could probably tell you I gave him the best introduction to Medicare that he'd ever seen. And now some years later, not to tell your alphabet soup, your group and your team is now had meteoric success, correct? And there's more to come. So what happens, don't despise small beginnings. The introduction to all of this should bring optimism, should bring hope, should bring excitement. But at the sense of overwhelm, if you weren't overwhelmed, and I think it was somebody that said earlier, and I'll probably butcher names because I'm just getting to meet some of them. It might have been Evan, but it's the old Mario Andretti quote. At least I'm going to paraphrase it. If you're not scared, you're not driving fast enough. And life is coming fast. Innovation, evolution, all of that's happening fast, but the opportunity within the industry is expanding at the speed of light as well. So what I'm going to ask as a question is for the prognosis piece, for the 45-ish minutes that I might walk up and down here, and I forgot my clicker, so I'm going to have to go back and forth to the computer. What would you want if you could take all these emotional quotient things that you've got and bring in some intelligence quotient, i.e. the tactical operational? What would you want somebody that's been doing this 26 years at a very high level? First, well, I will do this. I struggled first to find the six-figure room. And that's what Luis rips off from me just shamelessly and brutally. But I did it at one of these big events, and I literally had a room of 1,000 agents. I said, stand up if you've ever made six figures in any form. I know he's done this. Just about 60%, 70% stood up, agents, all industries. I said, but if you have a six-figure renewal, remain standing. In that room of 1,000 people that paid a big amount of money to get a ticket, there were 9. and one was annuity, and the other 8 were Medicare. Now, there's a part of me that always thinks, I don't want to shame people by saying this is what you could have been, should have been, would have been, but you haven't lived up to your potential, because not everybody wants to make that kind of money in this kind of fashion. But if you had a hope, goal, and a dream that Adam Howard asked you about relative to your target, boy, the land of milk and honey is here. And if you're not actually pulling from it, it's because of a couple of things. And I'm going to do it. Lazy, complacent, i.e. I've got enough, or you're scared because you don't know. So I'm going to ask that question one more time relative to what I do here in the next 45 minutes. What would you want to hear that would help you be ready for the next step? And as I always tell agents, don't get ready, be ready. Don't whine and cry certify. You'll find out what that means soon enough for some of you that have never certified before. What would you want to hear? What would you want to know? You've got an old man that had a lot of hair when he started this, that's lost it. He was gray before it fell, and then it fell out. Actually, technically, this is shaved, but that's another story for another day. What would you want to hear? Otherwise, I'm going to dive in, move at the speed of light, and I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at you. Kitchen sink? Okay. All right, so then this is what we're going to do. Actually, can I get someone to come, Matt, do you, or somebody just to come in and click my page down button?
Matt does nothing.
I'm going to help you on it.
Absolutely. What's your name?
Frank.
Frank, I'm Brandon.
Nobody stood up. I'm out as well.
So, actually, let's see here. This will be my down button.
Oh, will that work?
Well, let's see here.
I gotta click on it like that.
It actually slideshow. Okay. Well, I should have just played. Actually, let's do this way. Huh. Oh, that's not good. Yeah, hit the page down. Let's go back up here.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, let's see. It didn't change up there. Oh, this is a touch screen too.
Fancy.
Yeah, it is. But it's not working, so how fancy is it? All right. Let's do that one more time. And then hit that page down.
There it is.
Okay. So, and I'll just give you sort of the head nod. And it's Frank. So y'all give Frank a round of applause, and I'll have him paid labor. But and this will be fast, because I've gone around and I've done a few presentations, and this will be part of the one I did last time when I did the Agent Mastermind in Las Vegas, which that elite group that they formed is huge. You need to write whatever it takes to be part of that mastermind think tank. But then there were some other things that I did, and I thought, what am I going to do today? And it's kind of back to, if my time with you is limited, I'd rather overwhelm you than underwhelm. I'd rather scattershot, throw my seed indiscriminately, so to speak, and then have the seeds that matter to you take root and have a chance to grow. Because I'm filled with literally 26 years of knowledge, and my wife would say 26 years of other things, but I'm filled with a lot, hot air notwithstanding. But go ahead, Frank, let's get it. What do you see? So hit it again, and I'll just give you the point. Some of you will see opportunity is nowhere. Some of you will see opportunity is now here. And I'm telling you, opportunity is now here. I don't go to many meetings where they give so much of the substantive meat of their secret sauce. Now, yes, they want you to partner with them, but they're saying give, ask. But if you give, it's not even really about ask. It's just like any other thing in a consultative sales environment. You've led people down the primrose path, and they're picking you. That's really, at the end of the day, what you're here to do. If you're not already partnered with somebody, or if you're not partnered in the way that's beneficial, you are now being given. Choose. Make a decision. Frank? So we'll skip past this. The whole six-figure thing. My thing now, though, is I'm still a little disappointed, and flip through a few of those, that the more audiences I go to, there are not more agents generating a six-figure income. So this is what I tell people. How many people remember the old Star Trek? William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, DeForest Kelley, Gene Roddenberry wrote them. But this is an episode called The Arena, where there was a fancy reptile called the Gorn. And the superior being that put Captain Kirk in this alien on this planet said, the things you need. The things you need. The things you need to subdue your enemy, in this instance, the Gorn, the reptile, Cheesy, are all indigenous to the planet. So Captain Kirk, through ingenuity, innovation, and thinking, imagination, got coal, sulfur, diamonds, bamboo, and basically formed a crude gunpowder. Anybody remember that episode? Okay, I've got one. Is that Mark? Thank you, Mark, for representing for the 50 plus. Hallelujah. But then you can hit that, Frank. He didn't kill him. Moral of the story, Gene Roddenberry always had a moral of a story, but he used those ingredients to build something explosive that totally changed the game, because he was not going to beat that enemy with brute force. Some of you right now mentally are trying to beat this thing with brute force, when it's just going to overwhelm you, where you've got to use imagination, ingenuity, and some skill, innovation to build something that's going to work for your individual business practice. So those four things are, in this instance, final expense. Again, I want to get a bigger show. How many, because I heard some names, I saw some shirts, I want to throw names out. I see people who I know write a lot of final expense or mortgage protection. How many people are in here writing that right now? Final expense. And I know based on what I saw, not a lot of you are currently writing Medicare. In the way I see it, even though I come from a Medicare background, having designed plans, you could probably attribute 2 million members to my history. That's a lot. But at the end of the day, that's what I cut my teeth on. But then in 2011, once the company I was with, CIP, was bought by United Healthcare, I had a 2-year kind of cooling off, and I created a little system called 6 hours to 6 figures. And it was one of the first things I introduced to Matt, to Ruben. Now, they were already amazing people, but I showed them what I thought was a system to leverage what they did better than anybody, which was porch hop, door knocking, getting somebody to take the hardest sale in the house. Because final expense, unless somebody shouts me down, is the hardest sale in the house. Hardest to sell, easiest to learn. Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, easiest to sell, hardest to learn. So you in there getting that hard one, and then you got Ruben sliding in behind you getting the easy one, and then Ruben does his, oh, by the way, what about your final expense? Can I price that for you? So we got final expense, Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage, and as has been a recurring theme, hospital indemnity. Frankity Frank?
I actually sound like that.
I bet he does, the oh, by the way. But here's the thing, final expense shouldn't be final. Yes, that's a play on words. Click, clack. So if I conducted an experiment and called, for those of you that have books of business with final expense, mortgage protection, or really almost anything, in the senior environment, or very specifically, in the disabled environment where they're under age 65. A lot of your final expense clients are on disability that have Medicare that are under the age of 65. But if we call 10 of those people right now, 7 of them would say, just as I suspected, you have the other products. But the sad part of that is another agent is finishing the work you started. You took the hardest one in the house that pays one-time linear, that pays pretty good when it pays, but placement rate, persistency, renewals, not so good. But final expense is a great starting point, foundational, which is why I love the way the day was set up with Kyle, right? And several others that are experts at knowing how to sell the, what was the provider that was here, the carrier that was here? Trinity. That you guys that aren't doing that, that should be a carrier you review. But another agent is finishing what you started. So this is the way I do it, and I'm going to move a little quicker here. In the opening, you should be asking questions. This is actually a final expense appointment, much like, now Ruben and Chad had a much fancier approach. I do this just to seal the deal for you to know what it would be once you've porch topped, door knocked, gotten into an appointment, whether it's a BRC or you did something else to get to someone because there's less regulatory requirement. But you're going to tell them who you are, what you do, and why you're there. So when you tell them who you are, what you do, and why you're there, you've already seen it shown on a couple of the things here, where you're basically going to say, my name's Brandon, I specialize in life, Medicare, MedSup, indemnity. You can put annuities, you can put all those other things. But as has been mentioned, the moment you tell them who you are, what you do, and why you're there, my name's Brandon Clay, I'm an agent extraordinaire. I do life, Medicare products, hospital indemnity, cancer plans, etc. For a lot of them, the thing that ding, ding, ding Pavlovian rang their bell and fed their dog is you saying to them that you do Medicare. And you can compliantly do that. Now, do you want to pivot and go straight to a Medicare story? In my world, no. Because if you're brand new to this, you can't afford to lose the final expense, because what is the final expense sale going to do? Pay your rent and set you up for a compliant transition. But if you start trying to spin plates, juggle balls, and do all those things and you're brand new, you're going to get lost in the forest. So back to simplicity. I just want to introduce, and then I want to move on. So as I move on, in the beginning, I should be in the fact find, which was mentioned, and this is very raw and rudimentary. Everybody knows on a final expense, you've got about 3 components to it. There's round 1, that's the knockout round. They're either going to get immediate or it's going to go modified in round 2. It may go from modified to guaranteed, but if they make it all the way through, you actually have now an ability to get an immediate issue final expense or mortgage protection, depending on what you're there for. But when you go further, 4 more questions will take you to some really vital information. Now again, I porch top door knock, I got to this person, I got a BRC and I went and visited them. Now I sat down and I did my final expense after I introduced who I am, what I do, and why I'm there. But once I get through that piece, I want to ask 4 more questions, some of which you may be asking already. Number 1 would be, who are your doctors? Just like Ruben had on his intake form, or what is known as a permission to contact. You write the doctors down. What medicines do you take? Jot them down. You're not trying to stop. Now they're going to talk to you about bursitis and everything else and arthritis and all that. My knees are hurting me right now, so I can't talk about nobody's bursitis and arthritis. Point is, you want to keep moving, but you're fact finding. But the mission you're still on is to sell final expense. So then, have you been to the doctor or the hospital in the last 12 months? And then the final question, the more sophisticated you get, what would you pay or what did you pay if you go to the hospital? Now, believe it or not, now I'm at the point of expertise. I don't have to necessarily ask them about which plan are they on, not yet. But if I found out they paid $13.50 when they went to the hospital, my mind says, ooh, they're on naked running down the street Medicare. Who said naked Medicare earlier today? I forgot. That was one of my phrases. Or if they tell me they paid $350 times 5 days, I know it's a Medicare Advantage. If they tell me, baby, I don't pay nothing. If I had to jump the porch because there's a hole in it, I know they're Medi dual eligible. If I'm in Buckhead in Atlanta, I know that they're on a Medicare supplement, probably a Plan G or a Plan F. My point is those 4 questions give me everything I need to go home and do the homework. Because again, the worst thing that you can do getting in the sense of overwhelm is to try to cover all the bridges in the same appointment. Number 1, it's non-compliant by way of finishing the application. So Frank? So when you finally sell the policy, you want to sell the policy, then you want to get a SOA, scope of appointment, or a PTC, permission to contact, and you'll get all this by the time it's all said and done. As a matter of fact, for my final expense agents right now, on average, would you see 30 people a month? 30 people a month. You'd be doing sit downs. And what's your name? Malcolm? So 30 people a month. If you saw 30 people a month, and I'm going to do this, even if you didn't close them, but said, you know what, as I mentioned, I do life, Medicare, et cetera, would it be permissible for me to call you October the 1st when the AEP pre-warming starts? And they say yes, all you got to do is get that form filled out. It's not a scope of appointment, it's a permission to contact. And Malcolm may not even be certified to sell. But he might come to me and say, Brandon, I got a stack of these things. What do? I say, we get ready to be ready. We go into the different technologies that are available through 360, specifically Sunfire. You can put all that information in, and with training wheels, it's going to spit out an answer and say, this is the plan that in theory could be the best one for them. Or you might engage some other model like what Chad talked about, where he's got all his things on laminated sheets. My point is, if you're brand new and you've got 100 of those, permission to contacts now, not scope of appointments, I can almost promise you 30 members from those. Because more than likely they haven't been talked to in a few years. So I always say, you got a BRC, sell the policy, get a SOA or a PTC, you'll never be SOL as it relates to compliance. Say that fast. See, this Southern, somebody mentioned Southern drawl earlier. I got the Southern drawl now, don't worry about that. I earned this Atlanta native voice. So Frank, so then we've already sold the final expense, and then we can compliantly do what's been said. Everybody here, I can get the next document. I can get the next thing that lets me do the next thing. I can get the scope of appointment and go back a day later, just because I like to keep the days separate, but that's all up to interpretation. It can be different for everybody. Because number one, if you're brand new, you got to go home and do some homework. Normally, and I'm going to do this for my final expense porch hopping, door knocking warriors, you're transactional, you're run and gun, one and done. I won, it's over. If they don't stick with me and they drop off, that's just part of the game. I'm just going to have a 70% pay through rate, which, by the way, with what you guys mentioned in the 90s with this company for the way they do their billing and Social Security, unheard of. Unheard of. And again, I come from an environment where we were doing $100 million a year in final expense and mortgage protection. So you're going to then go home and serve at a higher level. So this is the way I show Medicare. This is what you get when you get the red, white, and blue card. You're walking the tightrope like the great Carl Wallinda, if you guys remember the great Wallindas back in the day. But you've got your $170 a month coming out of your Social Security check like clockwork, unless you're dual eligible, and so on and so forth. But you've got all these cost shares, the deductible $233 for going to the doctor and professional charges, 20% co-insurance. Lay your head in the bed and stay a night in the hospital is $1,556. And then you've got to have your Part D coverage. So all I need you to know is that when you see this, people have gaps. So once you've sold the final expense and you've gotten a scope of appointment or a permission to contact, you're going to go home with all the doctors, all the meds, and you're going to put all this through the machine, and it's going to give you a vital few. But what you're really going back to do for somebody is fill the gaps. That's all Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage does. So this is a Medicare Supplement. Again, I know this is repetitive, but it's just my little different version. This couple with a Plan G is paying $325 a month in addition to the $170 that they each pay for Part B. That's a lot of cash. And the Part B is coming out like clockwork, and the Plan G is going to come out, and it may go up every year. And they have to separately have a prescription drug plan, PDP, right? So this is the other couple. They get that zero premium Medicare Advantage plan, that PPO. And they've got benefits that come with it at zero premium because these are contracted with the federal government, and the government is giving a premium to the carriers, Cigna, Amerigroup, etc. So it's a tale of two cities. Charles Dickens, the best of times, the worst of times, if you remember that line. But at this point, somebody is going to have to pay for some parts of their health care. So let's look at them side by side. And then you can kind of go through a little bit quick here for me, Frank. So it's all zeros over here for the Medicare supplement. Actually, hit the page. There we go. So for the Medicare supplement, in a Plan G, after they pay the Part B deductible, $233, they got a Billy Preston, Fifth Beatle, nothing from nothing, leaves nothing. They don't pay anything for care after they meet the deductible. But they pay $3,900 a year for the privilege of paying zeros. This one over here paid zeros, but when they go to get different services, they have to cost share. Not a bad deal, except when you get to the big ones like the radiation treatments, hospitalization, and what's known as the moot there it is, out-of-pocket maximum out-of-pocket, MOOP, which means that if you start using services, you could pay up to $10,000 per person before the plan says, cry uncle, we done with you. You don't have to pay nothing else for health care for the rest of the year. Oh, but starting in the new year, we're going to reset the clock and moot, there it is, moot, there it is. The moot becomes one of the most important elements of a Medicare Advantage plan, because it's the reason you're going to need, as Luis Moreno shakes his head, you're going to need indemnity. Now, I know it's been drilled in. I'm going to go a little bit deeper with you. So now we take a look at them side by side. One of them's paying $3,900, one of them's paying zero. The real question is, who looks smarter? well, there's an annual difference, but let's do this. Who looks smarter? And the reason I say looks, because the answer is not as easy as it might sound. So in sickness, who is smarter? The people on the right, or well, the left. Thank you. The people, Derek's got it right, not me. The people on the Medicare supplement, if they both get cancer, after they pay $233, how much do they pay for anything else? Zeros. The people on the other side, the right, if they both got cancer and sickness, they would, just trust me, the moment you say cancer, moot, there it is. You're going to reach the moot. So they're going to be paying $20,000. Now in health, the people on the left don't look so smart. It's like having car insurance and being a safe driver. You paid $20,000 for 5 years of good health and you didn't really use it. But the people on the right look like geniuses. They paid zero and then just paid co-pays. And then they got the extra stuff like dental, vision, hearing, etc. So the question isn't so much in sickness and in health who looks or is smarter. The real question is with insurance, what is our real job with insurance? To cover the things that we don't want to have happen. But with this population, hospitalization, cancer, and other things is not so much a matter of if, it is a matter of when, Malcolm. There's a certain amount of inevitability and mortality that bakes into this thing. Okay? So in sickness and in health. So there is a place for Medicare supplements, and I'm with Luis, particularly in the region I know he's in. You're going to get a skewed number depending on, especially if you're basing final expense as your engine. Most of your clients are going to be Medicare Advantage. But you need to be ready with Medicare supplement because there's a place for it and there's a demand for it. So next, Frank. So hospital indemnity is what we add in addition to Medicare Advantage zero premium to bring some additional coverage, because what insurance is designed to do is cover the things we don't want to have happen, but that might. It's to, and with the senior population, they want the most comprehensive coverage they can afford. Because a zero premium where they end up going to the hospital and paying $1,500, Brandon, I thought you said this thing was good. It cost me $1,500. I said, but it was zero to get to the $1,500. Wasn't that good? Kind of counterintuitive. But in this case, we add $110 a month for the two of them, and it gives $300 a day, and that's okay, Frank. $300 a day, $200 for the ambulance, and if either one of them get first occurrence of cancer, it writes them a lump sum check of $10,000. So I now have a zero premium Medicare Advantage plan added with hospital indemnity, which again, by way of what Luis and everyone else has said, you can sell that in the same appointment. I'm going to do something because actually I'm going to big dog here for a little bit. The Heartland National product, Nick Micheletti's a good buddy of mine. Actually, I was there at that Heartland facility. That was the $100 million final expense and life shop. We developed that together and we made it a la carte so you could take off of it what you want and dial into a price versus it being a buffet version that just said, oh, well, you're both going to have to take this and this is what it looks like. So it's very flexible, very creative in the sense that it lets you dial into their affordability, but it gives them the insurance that they want. So if you present hospital indemnity 10 times to a Medicare Advantage, not a DSNP, LIS and MAPD people, if you present, I almost want to take it as a poll. If you present it, that's all you have to do is present it 10 times. Anybody that's selling them, tell me how many you'll sell presenting it 10 times. Luis, I'll start with you. 50-50. 50-50. Anybody with a different number?
Well, I say it's 50-50, but it's either yes or no.
It's either, but if you don't present it, it's always going to be no.
100% no.
Derek, do you do hospital indemnity?
Yes, I have.
And if I were giving you, if you presented it 10 times, what might you say?
That's about right. I think pretty close, sometimes a little bit more.
So 50-50. Now I'm going to take a slight digression, and then we're going to have to do a real speed round. But this is the instructional piece before I do what I'll call the inspirational piece, and we may not get all the way through the Yeah, please, Luis.
I present it because sometimes I'm running 100 miles an hour. When I present it, I do sell it.
Yes. When he presents it, he does sell it. So for the people that don't know Medicare Advantage, if you take somebody from plan A to Plan B, Aetna to Cigna, Cigna to Amerigroup. In the middle of June, in the middle of the year, instead of getting $270-ish, you're going to get half of that, $130, because it's prorated. Now, if they're brand new, turning 65, you're going to get the full $570. That's a great thing. But if you're mid-year and you're still selling them, you're porch hopping, door knocking, selling final expense, and Mr. and Mrs. Jones are on a D-SNP and you move them to a better fit plan, it's the middle of July, you're going to get $130 per person versus the original $270 if it were the AEP. So what I tell people is the way you make the rough places smooth and the high places low is if you add indemnity, you just added probably, in that couple's case, another $800 to $900 to your commission. So it basically gives you a chance to give them better coverage. You're not just overselling. You're not even really upselling. You're doing companion selling. And when it's brought out that way, they do buy. So Frank, so now we've narrowed down the cost a little bit. So now you've got $3,900, $1,320. The savings or the difference between them is $2,580. And in this case, what some people might do is use that for hospital indemnity or final expense, final expense. But now, if you notice, they look, and you can push that one more time. In the hospital, now they're both zeros. Ambulance, they're both zeros. Radiation, they're both zeros. Maximum out of pocket is essentially zero. There's a little technicality there. My point is, you still didn't take them to the full cost of a Medicare supplement, but you indemnified. That's the whole thing. Hospital indemnification. When you go to the hospital, because it's not a matter of when, it's a matter of if, not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, I'm going to write you that check for $300 for every day you're in the hospital. You get cancer, I'm going to give you this $10,000 check in the case of the one I just wrote. It could be different amounts, as they showed earlier. So what you now have, when you do that, you've got the Reese's Cup, two great tastes that taste great together. When you put an MAPD, a Medicare Advantage plan, with a hospital indemnity plan, I got your chocolate in my peanut butter, I got your peanut butter in my chocolate, and now all of a sudden this person with a zero premium with $110 a month in their hospital indemnity plan have, in essence, and we'll just go real quick through them, it turns an MAPD into a baby med sup. They get it turns an MAPD into some form of D-SNP, kind of like what Brian and they were talking about with the LIS model for Amerigroup. But you get the MA, the medical coverage, you get the PD, the pharmacy coverage, you get the DVH, dental vision hearing, you get the flex card if there is one, you get the OTC, yeah, you know me, and then you get the gym, and then you get the picture. Now again, that rapid fire wasn't so much to help you know how to sell it, it's to trigger off into that reticular activating system that your mind is thirsty for the answers right now to tell you, oh my goodness, if I bring coal, sulfur, diamonds, and bamboo and strike some flint together, I can actually have a fire. If I bring Medicare Advantage and indemnity together with my final expense, I've now doubled the amount of revenue, and the Medicare Advantage revenue is lifetime. The $270-ish a year, you will get paid that for life, as long as the member is on the plan that you put them into. So you get 100 of these, you'll have $27,000 coming your way. You get 800 and something like Adam did in his first year. I can't even do the math. That's $200,000 a year in renewal. They'll all be asking Adam for business loans after this, I'm sure. Doesn't matter that you don't get that 1,000%. I just need you to know this is what's happening in the ever-expanding world of the Medicare population at the speed of light. Come on in, the water's fine. Frank, we gonna roll, now we gonna roll. So here's the way I like to say it too, because I don't like economically. There's altruism, capitalism, they're not mutually exclusive, they're not diametrically opposed. You can feel good about this because as the lady that he talked about with the dentures and the diabetes, this makes a difference. So I always ask agents, what kind of pie do you want? And if anybody remembers the movie Radio, Ed Harris, Cuba Gooding Jr., hey Radio, what kind of pie you want, Coach Jones? Coach Jones, I want both. As an agent, you've got to expand your thinking to layer on in a fairly matriculated way. You can't do all this at once. I'm doing final expense, I'm good at it. Matter of fact, before you do any of this, and actually, it might have been David and I had it as a conversation on a podcast of his, what product would you start with? I actually like final expense first, believe it or not. There's a whole host of reasons for it. I won't go into that now. But master it, or at least get proficient. and then layer on the next one, Medicare makes the most sense, layer on indemnity, and then start doing, as the gentleman said, Dan, earlier with the annuities, was it Dan? Start asking for money. Start asking for money. So you want both. But then what kind of pie do your clients want? They want the right thing with ice cream on it, as he talked about in the upsell with Ruben. All right, so now we about to fly like an eagle. So serve your clients at a higher level. And this is the histogram that tells you how you make your money. 573 for Medicare, it levels out at 270, pays for life. Those long straight lines are good. Final expense pays really good up front, but then it drops down precipitously, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what will generate for you not only a six-figure linear income, but a six-figure renewal. How many people would want to know that every month they're getting $8,500 every month for doing what they did in the 2 or 3 years prior? And if you accelerate that and adapt a lot of the things that the 360 team is telling you, I believe for a lot of the agents in this room, it can be done in 12 to 18 months. And I'll do a little bit of bragging here. I ran a Tony Horton P90X. Now, not Tony Horton me. I got a little bit of, never mind, I won't do that. But I literally, this was in 2011. I was trying to do proof of concept. I took 50 agents and said, I need you to just come do whatever I tell you to do. And I created the book, 6 Hours of Six Figures, which, by the way, for anybody that partners with you guys, I'll send it to them. Now, it's 2018 information, but the core of it's still good. All you got to do is just change the Medicare numbers. But they're teaching you what that book was already. It's in the hands of 30, 40,000 agents, and I didn't mean for it to turn into that. It just did because they were hungry for the knowledge. But I took 50 agents, P90X style, all 50, well, probably now 30 of those agents all have renewals that are $250,000 or more. But that's been a decade. Some of them now run big agencies. I won't do any name drop in there. So let's keep going, Frank. So you want to generate a six-figure renewal in 3 to 5 years. That's the book. Go on, get with, if you're aligned, get with anybody on the 360 team. I'll send it to you. But here's where a lot of people are by way of the overwhelm, the excitement, the optimism, is there's that whole quadrant of unconsciously incompetent. When some of you walked in this room, you were unconsciously incompetent, which means you don't know that you don't know. And then a lightning flash of revelation hit you, and now you realize, oh, I'm dumb. I don't know none of this. Now you're consciously incompetent. But guess what? That's an amazing place to be because now you know what you don't know. And if you know what you don't know, what is your next job? Go get the information. And if you can connect with people like this team here, and get that information packaged in a systematic way, accelerate your learning, have the Ruben ride-alongs. That freaked me out years ago when I saw you guys on Facebook or whatever posting saying, I just rode with so-and-so and he rode his first 7. I'm like, what are they doing? They were running all over the country, riding along with agents to not just train, because there's a difference between training and development. Training imparts, development embeds. And when you get your first 5 experiences, believe it or not, there's a certain amount of prowess and skill that you have. And I always tell agents, you don't have to be smarter than 2 people. The knucklehead agent that came before you or after you, or the beneficiary. And even the rocket science beneficiaries are sitting there saying, what is all this ABC stuff? But in any moment where you're not savvy and smart, there's the group me, there's Luis with the quick, fast conversation, or you simply say, you know what, Miss Jones, this is a little bit above me. I think you might need to find someone else. Nothing wrong with that either. Because in the law of large numbers, you see 100 people, 70 of them are just going to be, show me the doc, show me the meds, and tell me my benefits. Like I was telling Caleb earlier, you shouldn't be jumping into, my first day I ran into 3 TRICARE people. Don't try it, leave them alone. For those that know, even though TRICARE, it's a long story. Okay, so Frank, let's keep rolling. All right, so I need my time clock. I think I've got 10 minutes. Let's do it. And this is where we go pretty fast. It's animated, but don't worry if you get ahead of me or anything like that. So this is the way I think I see this room. Everybody knows they're here, but they want to be where? There. Now, I will tell you in 1996 when I became an agent for United Healthcare, and it was an opportunity that I was excited, enthusiastic, scared, nervous. All anxiety is 1% anticipation and 99% intrepidation. I was scared, but I'm like, this is the one that's going to change the game, like what Ruben talked about, and it did. But I'm now a CEO, and it's another story to that. But there's always a backstory to success. I got lucky, had a family, a wife. I've been married 35 years, married my high school sweetheart, blah, blah. She wouldn't want to hear the blah, blah piece of that. But at the same time, the narrative is I had a support system, but I still had all the fear and all the concerns because my why was needs coming at me from every side. So I'm here, and I want to be there. And I think you'll have to click it a few times for me. So everybody in this room is somewhere, and they want to be somewhere else. So what you're really telling me is you want a goal, you want a target. So now the question is, two things will determine if you hit your target. How good is your weapon, and how good is your aim? So 2 cats fighting with lightsabers is just cute. Matter of fact, dangerous. But 5 smooth stones in the hands of somebody skilled is dangerous. It's deadly. And in the room today, if you don't recognize it, you've either got blinders on, you've got your arms folded, arms akimbo, or whatever the fancy words are. You've made up your mind, and I'm not doing any of this stuff. They're just too rah-rah. They're too this, they're too that, they're too this. And maybe this isn't the right connection, because I always tell agents all the time, be plugged in the right way. And you do have to do some amount of caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware. But somewhere when that thing clicks and pricks and hits your soul, you got to have a carpe diem and seize the day. Because every wasted day, you're losing inertia, momentum. So you've got the best products, training, tools. But then, as has been a recurring theme, and I don't know if you guys have picked up on it, it's the mind. The mindset is really what's going to differentiate who walks away here with lightsabers like kittens, or who walks away with 5 smooth stones and starts doing this thing and starts slaying their giants. So, your mind is a weapon. And again, be clear, 26 years of doing this, I'm probably, now I don't want to overstate or overestimate, but internationally and otherwise, I've certainly spoken into groups of over 100,000, but trained and taught and interacted with agents, probably somewhere in the 60, 70,000 range. And I've seen most agents use their mind to euthanize versus weaponize. Oh, these leads are bad. Oh, the carrier changed the benefits. Oh, another no-show. I get it. Those are vicissitudes of life. That stuff's just going to happen. But at some point, you have to weaponize your mind and fortify it. Meditation, which I also do. I have Jim Rohn. I have Earl Nightingale. I have all that on my... I don't listen to TV. Because most days, the days I live, I get 3 problems a day, but they're big ones. If you're, and it's not that we're taking magnitude of order here, but if you're making 10 decisions a day and they're all geared around revenue generating activities and 5 of them don't work, but 5 of them give you a chance and you close 3 in the world I come from, that's a good day. So what is your confidence factor for the goal that you've aligned? When Adam asked you what you wanted, what the goal was, what would be your confidence factor? Now here's the thing. Some people say, well, I'm 80% confident, 40% confident. The word confident is an absolute term. You don't get to put magnitudes. I know the hair must be up on the thing now. If you tell me I'm 50% confident, no, you're doubtful. Because confidence is an absolute by its design. It actually means in a Latin word, with faith, with truth. So if you have confidence in your goal, then it is absolute that you're going to achieve it. It's just like what Adam said, though. Are you willing to put in the mojo to make it happen? So look at this guy in 1982. Absolutely confident. Now, maybe not so much with the ladies, because I was a little bit shy back then. And matter of fact, my sister had to actually ask my now wife, would she talk to me? And I almost ran my sister over before she could do it. Now, of course, I'm grateful. But now, a few years later, you can immediately see the difference. My point is, if I make a goal for myself, the first 2 things you have to do is decide 3 things. You decide what you want, and then you have to understand that there is a price to pay. There is a price to pay. Greatness doesn't go on sale. Excellence does not go on sale. That's the problem now with a euthanized mind, is people are trying to diminish the role of energy, effort, willpower to start, and then skill power developed, because willpower takes you through a series of experiences where you would have experienced failure in some of those moments. But the brain, as Henry Ford says, if you fail, it gives you another chance to try again, this time more intelligently, an evolved approach. But if I think about when you know there's a price to pay, there's two rules to the price. You have to pay in full, and you have to pay in advance. So how do we build confidence to reach our target? I got 5 minutes. I'm going to take it from here. We take drugs. So some of you remember Bradley Cooper in Limitless. Remember the movie? That's a little bit more contemporary reference. Bradley Cooper. And he was a down and out writer, but when he got this drug, he became super acuity, great decision making. He could predict things, he was so good at it. But he took drugs. And then there's Jerry Rimmer in The Secondary Born. I prefer the Matt Damon, but I'm using this one because Matt Damon didn't take drugs, but Jerry Rimmer took chems, if you remember. So we take drugs in this business we're in, if we're serious about it. But if we euthanize our mind, we actually anesthetize it. Boy, I'm just gotten the Z's and the Y's going all good right here. So instead of weaponizing your mind, you've euthanized it and you've anesthetized it. Because here's the thing, making money. Does anybody think making money feels good? What's the single biggest check in? Okay, man, I won't do that. If you found $20 in your pocket that you didn't know was there, that serotonin thing clicks. I was like, oh my gosh, I got $20. It's a great day. Now you lose $20, your whole world is over. But my point to you is there's been studies done that making money sets off a series of neuron chemical synapses, all there's other fancy, the dendrites, fancy things, blah, blah, blah. There's the blah again. Point is, making money is a drug. And yes, depending on people and their dispositioning, it may be a little bit out of whack. But guess what else creates the same thing, the same mechanism in the brain at a higher magnitude? Serving. So if I can make money by serving, that means I'm going to get the drug of money and the drug of serving, and all of a sudden that Molotov cocktail should be going off in my head, and the no-show shouldn't be life-ending. The cancellation shouldn't be a big deal. The chargeback is like, oh, that's just the way this business goes. On to the next one. I got to find the 99 to the 1. But if you euthanize and anesthetize your mind, your weapon, the least little thing derails you. Which is what takes me back to how in the world, in an industry where there are 10,000 of these people coming in every day, 70% of them do not have retiree coverage. They may either be dual, low-income subsidy, they may be some other part of the continuum, but to the degree that you get smarter and better, the skills, you're in a position to help those 70 or so. So how is it after doing this 3 or 4 years, you're not still standing when I ask you, are you making a 6-figure renewal? You're either complacent, satisfied, lazy, or as I said earlier, scared. And scared usually out of good consciousness is that you don't want to hurt somebody by doing the wrong thing, which then means that you're consciously incompetent, knowing that you don't know something that you need to know. And Chad, what would you tell me if the fear was based on something you didn't know but needed to know? What would you go do? You'd go learn it. I'm going to answer that for you because that was all over the place. But it was vernacularly correct, I promise you. So now that we know why, and this is where we go speed round, now that we know why, the real question is how. And this is where we go one more thing here. And just go fast, Frank. Speed times time equals distance. Speed times time equals distance. 2 trains, speed times time equals distance. Which means your effort times time determines how long it takes for you to get the 500 sales, the 1,000 sales, the 5,000 sales. Your effort is going to determine it. So this is what I say, and again, he outlined this, and Adam and I didn't coordinate this in that fashion, but when he went from, I think it was good to average, or average to good to better to best, if you get 1% better in setting appointments, 1% better in closing, and you get 1% better and do 1% more, the compound effect of that will yield you a greater result. So we always want to do a little bit more. We'll keep moving a little bit more because I want to get down in 3 minutes here. A little bit more, a little bit more. Every day, just to dedicate 15 minutes to learning. If you're brand new, give me 15 minutes to learn. So then you've got the domino effect, the butterfly effect, and the compound effect. The domino effect is I did one small action that triggered a chain reaction. The butterfly effect is some inconsequential thing that I did yesterday will yield me some big opportunity somewhere down the line. I don't know it yet, but it's coming. And then the compound effect is uranium enriched, hitting that neutron, and all of a sudden, boom, it's Mentos and Coca-Cola. But you can only get the compound effect in partnership. That's the word compound. Now, we don't have time for these. That's unfortunate. No, that's okay, Frank. We can't go there. So, I would say to each one of you, with everything you've absorbed and learned, whether you absorbed it like Bounty, the quick picker-upper, or whether you're just that old rusted, beat-down towel that can't scoop anything up, you're still a towel. Because where I came from, we bought those cheap one-ply towels. We just had to use more of them. Some of you are going to have to use more of your cerebellum, cerebrum, medulla oblongata to get all of this stuff to the point where you can effectively actualize it in your life and then begin to yield the dual benefit of reaping the remuneration but getting the gratification. And the reason I'm here is because when I met him 4 years ago, I fell in love with the guy. That's metaphorical. That's not like when Chuck met Ted or whatever that movie was. But it was an energy. It was a spirit. And then about 6 or 8 months later, I'm in a room with Luis and him, and they're mapping all of this out. And then I got to meet David and all the rest of this team. And again, I don't work for 360, so I'm not on the stump for them. But I am saying that if you're trying to get plugged in and connected in a way that's going to be meaningful, to allow you to actualize all the stuff you've been talking about, you need somebody that's just not going to throw the seed. You need somebody that's going to sow the seed. My name's Brandon Clay. David, I always appreciate you. Thank you guys. Great continued success.